albums. I have shown in another video the walkthrough of this birthday album using Echo Park's A Birthday Wish collection, the girl colors. So I am going to show you in this video how to make it. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so we are going to get started in covering the book. So let's start with our chipboard. I have two pieces that are 6.5 by 8.5, and I have one piece that's 2.5 by 8.5. Now I've already covered them with some score tape, so we're going to be using that to cover. I also have two pieces of 8.5 by 10.5 cardstock, one piece that's 5.5 by 10.5, and one piece that's 6.5 by 8.5. So if you want more details about covering the book and all that, go ahead and check out a video. It's on my channel. It is a couple of ways that I cover mini album covers. I'm going to grab my scoreboard. And one of my 10.5 and 8.5 pieces of cardstock, and one of my 6.5 by 8.5 pieces of chipboard. Now I also have this handy dandy, I have two of those in the 1-inch size of spacers. These are available at Country Craft Creations, and they help me make my covers. This is the lay flat cover method designed by Tamara, and Tamara of Country Craft Creations, and it is a great method for covering books. All right, so I'm going to peel off my tape. I have burnished it on real well, so it comes off real easy. And they're pieced together. It's not perfectly, it's on most of the book. So I'm going to go up against the edge and the top and push down my piece of chipboard. And then I'm going to take, you can use a bone folder. I'm using this to adhere the paper to the chipboard. And I'm going to do one cover with you, and then I'll do the other one off camera, because a lot of people do know how to cover their books, or they may use this method or a different one. And I don't like to take too much time on covering the book. So I'm taking and burnishing where my cover is. So when I do that, then I've got 4 corners of 1-inch little pieces. So I'm going to cut those off, these 1-inch squares. Take them off. The great thing about this cover is it's nice and it's very clean lines. You still could, like if you were going to put fabric or ribbon over your cover, you still could use this method. So I go back and forth between this method and the, what I call the old method, how I used to cover the books. Either way. All right, I'm grabbing my Art Glitter Designer Dries Clear adhesive. No, I'm not. Before I do that, I'm going to grab my long blade scissors. And I'm going to pull one flap down, put my top blade of my scissors against it, and just trim. And what that does is it will prevent any overhang. And you can't trim it too short because you're up against the edge. So I'll do 4 cuts that way, and then I'll turn it over and then do 4 cuts here so I get the other side. See here, you've got a little overlap. it sort of jogs out like a stair. This is when we take care of that and trim it. See, this one does it too. Okay. Now we're ready to add the glue. And I do like to add the glue to the long sides first. And I add it to the very edge of where the chipboard is. And then I fill all this in. And I use my bone folder. And I push the tab up against my chipboard so it's right above it. And then I'll go against the very edge and burnish this down so the glue just slides all over and adheres the tab to my chipboard. So I'll do it one more time here, glue on the edge. So I feel like the glue, not only does it help adhere, but it softens the fibers of the cardstock and helps it bend a little easier. So there we go with that. And then I'll do the two short sides. I'll go ahead and add glue here. And I'm going to go ahead and add glue here. And just burnish and burnish. So that's easy, right? So now I've got that cover completely done. I'll just go ahead and run my bone folder against the edge just so it's a nice crisp, clean fold. And I'll grab my next one and I'll go ahead and do it. I said I do it off camera. I'm just going to do it in fast motion. All right, I've got my two covers done. Now I'm going to do the spine. So for this, I'm going to need my 5.5 by 10.5 inch piece. And I'm using my 1.5 inch spacer on the side and the 1 inch spacer on the top. Go ahead and peel off my backing paper. Put this up to the side and the top. Put that down, and I'm done with my spacers for this second. And then here I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm keeping my scoreboard because I'll need it in a second, so I don't mind working on that surface. I'm going to fold on the edge of the chipboard and burnish. And now I'll cut off. Now in this case, instead of having squares, that creates a rectangle. So I'm going to cut off my rectangles. Probably shouldn't have ripped that like that. I have two pairs of scissors sitting here. I shouldn't have pulled it. So anyhow, just cut right on that score line of these rectangles. And then same thing, I'm going to fold it over and cut so there won't be any overhang. Here's where I ripped it, but that's all right. It'll be fine. Turn it over and do this side. So we get all 8 sides of the tab, 2 on each side. And then in this case, I'm just going to do the top. I'm not going to do the sides as far as gluing it onto the chipboard. And I'm making sure that I have ample glue. I'll clean that up in just a second. I guess I was too ample with the glue. And I will clean that up. And then I'm going to take it and push it down against my surface with the chipboard showing side down. And get a good crisp, clean fold there. Okay, I'm going to put my spine no, I'm sorry. I'm going to put my spine face side down. I am going to add a little bit of glue, staying about 1/8 of an inch away. And because in this case I'm not good about drawing a straight line, I use the spacer. And just take a bead of glue. And then I fill in. I have been known to add a little bit of score tape on there, but I don't need to today. I'll pull this down till it stops right on there. So I'm right up against that one piece of chipboard, and I just burnish it real well. Turn it over and burnish here. And then I do the same with this side. So again, I've got a more detailed video showing you how I do it. And really, you can, oh, I'm too close. You can cover your album however you want. If you don't want to use this method, that's okay. Just as long as you get it covered. And then I'll push that right there against it. Turn it over and burnish that glue real good. And then just to make sure that's secure, I'll take a piece that is 6.5 by 8.5, and I'm going to glue that on here. So I will just add some glue and cover that. I'm going to add glue up here and down the chipboard and at the bottom too. And on this side of the chipboard and this side of the chipboard. I'm going to be sort of generous with the glue. Because, I mean, this is what's holding everything together. Actually, that's sticking up a little. And then I'll put it on here. I'll go around the perimeter. And then I will adhere it. I want to work fast because you don't want the glue to dry. So I just sort of work pretty quickly with that. Put it down. It doesn't have to be exactly centered, just as long as it's centered top and bottom so you don't see any of this. And if you're worried about it, just cut this piece down. Instead of being exactly 8.5, cut it about 1/16 of an inch smaller. All right, I'm just going to work this a little bit. And then I will go ahead and make sure this will fold. And there is our cover. All right, simple enough. All right, next step is we're going to make the hinge. All right, to make the hinge, you're going to need a piece of cardstock that's 8 inches by 12. I'm going to put it on my scoreboard with the 12-inch side at the top And I'm going to score every 1/2 inch, starting at 2.5 and ending at 9.5. So I will start at 2.5, then 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, and 9.5. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have, it's going to be relatively easy. You're going to have 1/2 inch hinges and a 1/2 inch gusset. So what you have is hinge, hinge, gusset, hinge, hinge, gusset. So it's a little difficult because they're all the same size, but what you need to do is fold in the center of a set of hinges and then leave a gusset. So I'm going to turn this actually over so the bump side is facing up. I'm going to start at the bottom. So there's a hinge, hinge, gusset. Between those two hinges, I'm going to fold and I'm going to burnish. Now I'm going to go up to the neck, so I have a gusset here, hinge, hinge, fold between those two hinges. And when you fold, make sure it's lined up at the side. You want to make sure this is nice and straight. So here's a gusset, hinge, hinge, I'll fold there. And gusset, hinge, hinge, so I'll fold between those two. And now we have gusset, and then we have 2 more hinges. And I will fold and burnish on that. So I'm going to leave it on my table, and you can see, just because of the shadows, we've got 5 folds. So here's a set of hinges, here, here, and there. So now I'm going to take it and hold my fingers down at the top and pull towards me at the top and sort of hold it down with my thumbs so that first hinge becomes more pronounced and becomes into a mountain. So I'll pull it and pinch it so that mountaintop is now one piece, and just with my fingers just fold it. We'll burnish it in a second with our bone folder, but just to get it to group together. So we'll do that with the next set. So here's the mountain, and I will pull that towards me, and there we go. So we've gotten those 2 hinges to group together. I'll do that with the next one, the next one, and the next one. So if we pull this towards us, those hinges will hold together. But they're not glued down. That's our next step. I'm going to turn it over now and add glue, and I'm going to do one at a time. So I'll add glue in that hinge. I want to make sure I get it towards the top, the part that's facing up. I'm going to turn this over and now pinch this together. We've got glue in there. Pinch it together, run back and forth with your fingers so that glue spreads. If any come out, grab your wipe or whatever. And now we've got that so it's together. Now we're gonna burnish it a little bit more, but let's just get the rest of the hinges together. So you want to work fairly quickly. I mean, you don't need to rush. I got glue up at the top. I don't want it there. Just wipe that off. No big deal. And pinch that together. So we'll do that with the other 3 hinges. Add some glue. You don't want to be overly generous, but you don't want to be stingy either. So I'll pinch that together. And now I'm taking off this tip because there's something stuck in it, and I just want to finish this. And it's alright if I use a little more glue on the hinge. It's like a very important part of our mini album. We want to make sure it stays together. So I'll put it down and pinch that. Yeah, some glue comes out here now. I'm using an old piece of flannel because there's not much lint on it. So just use any cloth that's lint free. You know those things you get to clean your glasses? Those would work fabulously as well. So I'll pinch this last one together. And now I'm going to push it away from me, take my bone folder, not you, and burnish, and push it towards me, and take my bone folder, and burnish. And now the underside of it should be nice and crisp and clean. And there we go, there is our hinge. So now we'll take our cover and I am going to just center it on here. I'm going to have a little bit more room at the top than I do at the bottom, just because if I have any tags or something up at the top, I want to make sure there's room. So now I'm going to first of all add glue in those little channels created by where those hinges are together. And then add glue throughout the rest. And again, you want to work quickly because you don't want the glue to dry here. You'll hear crackling if it dries. Now I'll put some more glue. And I like using glue for this as opposed to score tape. Some people like to use both. I sort of stay away 1/4 of an inch from the edge. I guess I could get a little closer there. Because I don't want it seeping through. And now I'll just place it down. I sort of already eyeballed it, and I know I've got just about 1/4 of an inch from the hinge to the edge of the spine. You can see where the fold is on our cardstock. And same thing with the back. Now, I start with my fingers. I start from the center and go from the bottom to the top and fold it over. Then I work my way out. So now I'll pull this one. And then this one. And I've done that, so I'll pull this. So I move the hinges towards the center as I go. And then once I've gotten it down, I'll go ahead and grab my bone folder and burnish. If any glue comes out, clean it up. And then once it's down, I'll take my bone folder, push my hinges to one side, turn them to the other side. Use the side of my bone folder and burnish. Turn them to the other side and burnish. So I do that a couple of times. It helps the glue to get distributed, and it helps make your little hinges used to going back and forth. Now I'm going to just let this dry before I try to crease where the edge of the spine and beginning of the pages are. I'm going to find that channel. Whoops, there it is. These are up, they're not all glued down because I left a little room for my fingers, so I'm going to lift that a little bit, add some glue there. And I am going to let that dry. And then right before I put my base pages in, I'll just open the book a couple of times and make sure that I can probably take the edge of my bone folder and go in that channel just to get it to fold a little easier. So that's it as far as getting the spine on the book. Now we're ready to make the base pages. All right, we are going to make a base page. A base page is basically a tube. The tube is going to fit over the hinge. We're going to glue it, and now you have it open on one side where you can, if you wish, put a hidden pocket page or a hidden photo mat. So we're going to use 12 by 12 paper for this example. Now, if you have 8.5 by 11, that'll work too. You'll just need to use more, but that's okay. And what we're first going to do with the 12 by 12 paper is cut it down to 8.5. So we'll put this piece aside, and then this remaining piece that's 12 by 8.5, we're going to cut at the 6-inch mark. So you'll have two pieces that are 8.5 by 6. So if you're using 8.5 by 11, then for the book you're going to need 10 pieces of cardstock 8.5 by 11, and you're going to cut them down to 6 by 8.5. Now I'm going to grab my scoreboard, and for both of these you are going to score at the 8-inch mark. So put the 8.5-inch side at the top and score at 8 inches for both of them. And then let's go ahead and miter the corners, so just cut at an angle from that score line. It doesn't have to be 15 degrees, 20 degrees, whatever. Just cut at an angle. And then we'll go ahead and move the scoreboard out of the way. And we're going to put this aside. Now this we're going to use for the 3x4 cut-aparts. If we put them, we're just going to use them in a lot of different ways. So put this aside, don't throw it out. Of course, I can't imagine anyone would throw this out. And then we're going to take our paper and fold and burnish on that score line. So now I've got my two tabs folding up. I'm going to take one and turn it upside down. So I've got my tab at the bottom, and they're going to go like this. So here I've got the one tab on the outside, and here the other tab's on the outside too. And that is going to make our page. So we're simply going to glue. I'll put the glue on the tab and fold it over. I'm making sure that it is even. And then we'll burnish. And then I'll turn this over and do the same for this side. You don't have to go crazy with the glue. You just want to make sure it sticks. And again, make sure that the sides are even on both the top and the bottom. And fold and burnish. So that gives us our tube. Now we'll grab our book. And I've already worked the book a little bit. I just take my bone folder and go in between where the spine and the cover meet, and then that will fold and just work it a little bit. And then this is the back of the book. Here's the front, and I generally will start at the back. And it doesn't matter whether or not the tab is at the top or the bottom, because we're going to cover it up. And let's dry fit it first to make sure it'll fit, which this page does. Now, if for some reason it doesn't fit, all you have to do is grab your scissors and just do a little miter here on your hinge. Don't go all the way to the bottom, and you can do it at the top or the bottom or both. It depends on how much room you need. No big deal, and if you like to just ensure it's going to fit without any finagling, then just cut them all. Alright, now I'm going to take the hinge and fold it towards the front, and I'm going to put glue. And now in this case I'm using a good amount of glue, but only at the top of the page. So it's about the top third. Don't go any lower than halfway down. And then I'm going to fold it over, not all the way to fold it down, and put glue on the other side. And get glue there. And then we're going to take our page and carefully, because you don't want to get the glue all over the place, put it down. Now, I usually go down to the bottom so it's resting on the book and then pull it up a little bit. So you want some of that hinge to show, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. The important thing is that your page is, don't make it too low. You don't want it to be on the outside of the book, and make it parallel to the book cover. Now, if everything was put on straight, you won't have any problems with this. If for some reason that hinge went on a little wonky, then this page might not be as straight. If it's off by a little, I really wouldn't worry about it. And I think at this point, if it's off, it's just going to be off by a little. Once you get all of your decorating done, people aren't going to look and see if your page is parallel with the bottom of the book. They're going to just look at the beautiful pictures inside. I think we're a little too hard on ourselves to make sure it's perfect. Now, if your page ends up being like this, once you put it in, then yeah, maybe you want to start over. And in this case, all you'd have to do is take the hinge off if you can. Or worst come to worst, you have to recover the book. And then you just have more layers on it than you started with. That's not a big deal. So again, I start from the back and I go towards the front and I put my pages in. When I'm all done, I'm going to burnish them all again, but we'll just put a couple more pages in. I'll get this done and then we'll move on to decorating the pages. But now you've got the base book, and you really can go anywhere you want from here. If you wanted just to keep the book very plain and just have the pages, you could do that. You could have the pages and the hidden mats inside, and that would be 15, let me see. That would be 20 pages. Because if you consider front and back of one set, that's front is 1, back is 2, so that would be 10 because we have 5 pages. And then with a hidden photo mat, front and back, that's another 10 pages, so that would be 20 pages. And plus you have the front inside cover, the back inside cover, so you're already at 22 surfaces to put photos, and you haven't even done anything special to it. You've just made the book. But if you're looking for really quick ones, then just do that. I'm just going to finish putting the pages in the book. Alright, now I've got the pages in. Now I'm going to take my bone folder, and with the one edge, I'm going to just burnish all these pages in. And there we go. There we've got the pages in the book. Alright, so now we've completed the first part of making the mini album. There is another video that's going to show you how I put all of the different elements in the pages. Look for that link in the description box. And that's what I have for you today. Have a fabulous day.